Sales contracts. To minimize fraud and abuse in creating binding contractual agreements, this Georgia law requires that any contract for sale must be in writing and signed by the parties involved. It's very important. Sales contract must be in writing and signed by the parties involved. Parties involved will be whom? The buyer, the seller, the agents. Okay? This written contract must express essential terms of the binding agreement, such as identifying the buyer and the seller, including a proper legal description. Here we go with that again. Legal descriptions are important. Typically, the short form legal description, metes and bounds, would also be acceptable. Street address may be included in description, but cannot stand alone without one of the other two. So it cannot just be a legal, the physical address. It would have to either be the short description or the metes and bounds descriptions with the address. Real property sales contracts is unenforceable absent a proper legal description. You must attach a legal description to the sales contract. It's in the sales contract. It's a box that needs to be checked off. Noting the price to be paid for the property and how it is to be paid, or if not expressly stated, indicating a clear method as to how the exact sales price will be calculated. So money matters, right, in a sales contract. All right, it has to be expressed. How much am I going to pay for it? How am I going to pay for it? Loan? Is this a loan? Will this be cash? Okay, am I trading vehicles? It has to be expressed in the contract how this is going to be paid for. Offers do not become sales contracts until the offer has been accepted, signed by the offeree, and the acceptance has been communicated by the offeree or the offeree's agent to the offerer or the offerer's agent. So if I put an offer in, let's say I'm the buyer, and I want to put an offer in on a property that you're selling, okay? I need to sign the offer, include the term, how much, the terms, how am I going to pay for it, to the seller, the seller, okay? The seller, if the seller is okay with everything that they see on the offer, the seller must sign the offer, okay? It's not accepted until it's signed by the offerer, which is the buyer, and the offeree, which is the buyer, and the offerer, which is the seller. Earnest money, while typically included as part of an offer in the sales contract to indicate an offerer's good faith to contract with the offeree, is not required for the validity of the contract and does not represent the consideration that must be exchanged between parties to create an enforceable agreement. So earnest money, also known as the good faith deposit, what it really indicates to the seller is that I'm offering you this money in good faith. I'm serious about what I'm offering you to purchase your home. It's a good faith deposit. The true consideration in sales contracts for the buyer is the purchase price offered. While consideration for the seller is the title of ownership, they are transferring to the buyer. So consideration is, what am I offering to purchase the home? What's my dollar amount that I'm offering to purchase the home? Real estate brokers and their affiliated licensees are required to present all written offers to their clients until the closing of the transaction. And that is so important because, you have some real estate agents that stop accepting offers until the closing of the transaction. But Georgia says present all written offers to the client until it closes, because anything can happen before it closes. A sale can fall through very quickly for any reason. When a seller receives an offer from a buyer, the seller can simply allow the offer to expire, accept the offer, or make his or her own offer back to the buyer. That offer is a counteroffer that cancels the original offer. A counteroffer may be made by striking through an unacceptable line or item, adding appropriate changes, initialing the strike through, and changes with the date and times, and signing and delivering the changes as a counteroffer. And this happens every day, okay? Your buyer puts an offer through to the seller. The seller could simply ignore it, okay? They could let it expire. They can reject it, or they could accept it, of course, but they could also come back and add to the offer or strike through something in the offer. What if they don't like the amount? What if they don't like the amount that you offered? They can counter. Let's say, for example, you offered, the house is on the market for $295 and you offered $300,000, but the seller really wants more than $300,000. So the seller can counter and say $310 and leave everything else the same. Initial what they crossed through, send it back to the buyer. The buyer, in turn, can say, no, I'm not going to pay $310, but I will pay $305, and send that back to the buyer. So that can go on for a long time until they have a meeting of the minds and they both sign and accept the deal. Okay? Many brokerage firms prefer to use a signed counteroffer form that references the original offer. If negotiation between the parties involves several offers and counteroffers, a separate counteroffer form may be used for each offer. Technically, a counteroffer is a rejection of the offer received and represents a new offer made to the other party. I believe that it's easier, I believe, to just it's easier to complete a counteroffer form. I mean, if you think about it, all of the scratch outs and initials on the initial offer can make it just look so, bad. It takes away the professionalism of the contract for me. So there's a counteroffer form. If the seller wants a counter or the buyer wants a counter, they can simply fill the counter form and put in the areas that they want to counter, where everything else will remain the same. It's easier to do a counteroffer form, but it's a personal preference on how you do it. Once the acceptance of an offeree has been communicated to the offerer, thereby becoming a binding contract, any changes made to the contract after then must be made through an amendment modification form signed by both parties to the contract. So once they've accepted all of the changes and all of that, then you can make you can actually type the contract again and have all parties sign. You can type a new purchase and sale offer. Once we've had a meeting of the minds, you can type up a new purchase and sale and put all of the necessary changes in there and have both parties sign it. Or you can simply fill out an amendment to amend the original contract. Amendments which change existing contracts should not be confused with addendums. Addendums means I'm adding something to it, which are supporting documents that are attached to the primary contract form to create the entire original binding agreement between the parties. People get amendments and addendums confused. Amendments is I'm making a change to something that exists in a contract. Addendum, I'm adding something. Functions of a licensee. preparing offers that are enforceable by law, that reflect the wishes of buyers and sellers, as well as advising and guiding these clients in the acceptance of offers and counteroffers so legally binding contracts may be created. Okay? Also, composing the language for contract forms is considered the practice of law, and real estate licensees are prohibited from drafting such documents. In Georgia, the real estate contracts are done by attorneys, not licensees. Licensees are expected to competently complete a contract form prepared by legal counsel by accurately filling in blank spaces as provided. When blank spaces in the contract forms do not apply to the licensee, should insert NA into the blank area rather than leave it blank. Blank forms usually leave, blank forms are not good, okay? It's best to put NA. If it doesn't relate to your contract, just simply fill in the blank space with an NA. Also, when the pre-printed language of contract forms does not express the parties' wishes or interests of the parties involved, the licensee should strike through the inappropriate material and have the parties initial this change, adding the time and date of the change. Any strike-throughs in a language in a contract should be initialed with the date and time. Striking through and changing existing pre-printed contractual language may properly occur during the negotiating process with offers and counteroffers. However, this process should never take place after the binding agreement has been created. Only amendment forms may be used for this purpose. So if it's already binding, striking through is good while you're still negotiating or doing a counter, okay? But once it's binding, you have to add amendments after that, okay, to make any changes. When drafting special stipulations or conditions for performance into pre-printed contract forms, licensees should note that handwritten wording takes precedence over typewritten, which takes precedence over pre-printing. I'll say that again. Handwritten wording takes precedence over typewritten, which takes precedence over pre-printed wording, because handwritten is your changes, right? Advice from licensees may not include guidance such as in ways to take title, in investment strategies, in tax issues, in the legal consequence of rescinding binding agreements. There's other folks that can answer those questions, such as a tax accountant, your broker, an attorney, an investment counselor, okay? Not the licensee. Stay in your lane as a licensee.